Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to our Founder Spotlight video series. And in this episode, I've been really looking forward to our conversation with decorated, retired Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. Jocko is a highly regarded leadership expert and also the founder of the premium sports nutrition brand, Jocko Fuel, which is a customer favorite at the Vitamin Shoppe. Hello, Jocko, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Sharon. I appreciate it. It's been a great time so far with the Vitamin Shoppe. We appreciate all the support you've given us.
Well, we're grateful to have your products in our stores, and our customers love them. Well, first of all, I do want to thank you for the service that you've given to our country. I have such a high regard for the men and women who serve our country each and every day, more so today than ever. So thank you very much for all that you've done for our country and how you help our military when they come home.
It was an honor for me to serve, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat if required or if I could. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm a little too old now.
Well, you've done so much, coming home. When you think about being a New York Times bestseller, author, all of the work that you've done with leadership, you host a very popular podcast. You're all over social media, have tons of followers who really are inspired by you. And you're the founder of Jocko Fuel. How did Jocko, the sports nutrition brand, come to be once you got home?
I ended up staying in the SEAL teams for 20 years. When I got out of the military, I started working with companies talking about leadership. A lot of people said, hey, do you have this stuff that you're teaching? Do you have it written down anywhere? Can you hand us a pamphlet or something like that? And so I had joined forces with one of my friends from the SEAL teams, and I looked at him and we kind of decided we should write this stuff down. So we wrote it down and we ended up publishing a book called Extreme Ownership. As that book was coming out, I had the fortune of being on a podcast with a guy named Tim Ferriss, who has an extremely popular podcast. And when he got done recording that podcast, as soon as he pressed stop, he looked at me and said, you should have your own podcast. That's exactly what I did. And the podcast that I created was pretty unique. I was talking about human nature, but I was really talking about human nature through the lens of war. And there wasn't really anybody else that was doing that. So the podcast that I made became very popular. And one of the things that came up a lot was jiu-jitsu, because I'm a huge fan and practitioner of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. As more people listen to the podcast, they would say, hey, I started jiu-jitsu, and there's a jiu-jitsu uniform that you wear when you do jiu-jitsu, which is called a jiu-jitsu gi. And people would ask me, hey, what kind of jiu-jitsu gi should I get? Because there's a bunch of different brands. Mm-hmm. And there happened to be one and only one American-made jiu-jitsu uniform. Really? And so I would, and this company was called Origin. And it was located, I'm from New England, and this company was actually located up in Maine, up in the north part of Maine, very isolated. And when people would ask me, I'd say, get an Origin gi. And I started saying, and by the way, if anybody can get me in touch with their owner and founder, this guy by the name of Pete Roberts, who I'd kind of seen on social media, I said, if anybody can connect me with him, please do, because I want to talk to him. Well, eventually somebody did connect us and we joined forces. And when we joined forces, the jiu-jitsu gis really started to sell extremely well. And he had a small supplement brand. He had another guy that was named Brian Littlefield. And Brian started talking to me about supplements. He said, hey, have you ever used supplements? And my answer truthfully was absolutely. I had used a lot of supplements over the years, but in the twilight of my SEAL career, some of the supplement brands that I had been using had some issues with them. And it ended up really hurting my trust in the supplement industry quite a bit. And I ended up kind of shying away from or moving away from taking supplements. And I kind of told that story to Brian. And he said, listen, we can actually create products that don't have any of those issues. We can create products that are 100% good for you. We can create products that you would want to take. So we started doing that, and we rolled out Jocko Fuel, and we're continuing to make new products and develop new products. But this is all stuff that I personally use. This is all stuff that is part of my everyday life, and it seems to be growing. And that's where Jocko Fuel came from. And that's how it got started.
So on social, you put a picture of your watch at 4:30 in the morning. And can you tell us a little bit about what was your inspiration about doing that? And tell our viewers why that's such an important part of Jocko today.
So I mentioned that I was on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and Tim is a very dynamic, forward-thinking guy. And that was actually the first interview that I ever did in my life. He says to me, hey, you got to get on this thing called Twitter. I didn't have any social media. I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't know what to post on it. I didn't know what to say. And one morning, I just woke up and I was looking at my watch, see what time it was. And I just took a picture of my watch and posted that. And that was right around when that Tim Ferriss interview came out, where I had talked about getting up early and what some of the advantages were to getting up early and why it was kind of a big part of my life. And when I posted that, there was people that kind of posted a picture of their watch and said, oh yeah, thanks for getting me out of bed. And thanks for reminding me to go get after it. And then it just sort of took off from there. And I look up and it's been over 5 years. And there's a lot of pictures of my watch and a bunch of other people's watches around the world of them getting up early in the morning and getting after it.
Well, it's very inspirational, Jocko, because if you think about a big part of what you've done in your career is not only what you did in the military, but the inspiration that you provide so many people each and every day. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about some of the leadership lessons and some of the inspiration that you've shared with the people that you've met now that you've come out of the military, and what that's meant to you.
Well, that was one of the most pleasantly surprising things when I got out of the military and when I started working with civilians. Mm-hmm. And I had been institutionalized, for lack of a better word. My entire adult life was spent in the military. I didn't know anything about the regular world. So when I started talking about leadership in the civilian sector, it was such a pleasant surprise to realize that the leadership principles that I had learned on the battlefield, the leadership principles that I had then taught to the next generation of SEALs, to see that those leadership principles applied directly to any team in any organization. Things like cover and move, which is teamwork, or keeping things simple, or prioritize and execute, which is, look, you're going to have a lot of things going on. You can't do them all at once. You can't do everything on the battlefield at once. You can't do everything in business at once. You can't do everything in life at once.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what your biggest priorities are and then work through those priorities and move on down the line. And then decentralized command, something that's a cornerstone of leadership inside the military, of letting your subordinate leaders lead. These principles applied not just to the way I fought in combat, but they applied to every organization I worked with.
So, Jocko, you have this amazing product category, and our viewers always love to get maybe just a sneak peek about what might be coming. Anything that you're working on that you might be able to share a little bit with our viewers about?
Well, there's two things I'll tell you about. A protein bar, a bar that tastes great, that you can eat kind of as a meal replacement, but also as a little bit of a dessert. Listen, you probably know I'm all about discipline, but discipline can also have a little bit of a sweet tooth. So when I get done eating a steak, sometimes I like to eat something that tastes sweet. I also like the convenience of having a bar. So we've got some protein bars, and then we're also going to end up with a ready to drink protein that you can go into a store, you can buy it off the shelves, and you can give it a shake and drink it. Again, there's a level of convenience there, but also there's an opportunity because a lot of the products that are out there right now aren't up to the level that we are going to make ours.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational story and your products with us today, Jocko. And thank you for making today's moment count. And we really appreciate all that you've done for our country and for all the people that you touch each and every day. And to all of our viewers out there, we want to thank you all for attending and viewing this Founder Spotlight. We want to thank Jocko again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. So take care and be well. Bye. Thank you, Jocko.
Thanks for having me, Sharon. Appreciate it.